good to see you. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. We just had a very short presentation. It's also being handed out to you in the print form so you can see it more closely. The project we want to talk about is the adaptive reuse of the old Woolworth building at 822, 824 LaSalle Street at the corner of Jackson Street. And it's a old retail building built in 1961. Has a nice street front on LaSalle Street, but on Jackson Street it has a 152-foot long brick wall, which fortunately the Ottawa Mural Committee and the Brush with History covered over with a wonderful mural for a good number of years, so there wasn't as ugly. And so that was certainly appreciated. But the time has come now for us to renovate this building and for an active use that will activate LaSalle Street more, activate Jackson Street and the historic Washington Park more, and create an attraction for downtown Ottawa that bring more people here, that will bring more revenue, tax revenues to the city, and bring more business to other local businesses, to increase sales tax, and to increase other spending in the community. So what we have come up with is a multi-use building, and we're going to share with you a little bit about that. We're going to take a little bit back on a history tour a few years ago for some planning that the city did, the citizens of the community did, with some ideas that were discussed at that time, and hoping we can resurrect a lot of those ideas, if not all at once, certainly over time. And so we want to share with you what our thinking is and get your input on it. So the view here is from Columbus Street on Jackson Street looking west. And the Woolworth building is the lowest long one-story building hidden behind this gigantic trellis. And then there's pedestrian activity, there's a splash pad in the street. There is the park that is currently our parking lot is repaved and used for marketplace, farmers market, Springo market, and the like. And Washington Square Park is to the right with all the trees. And so a lot of planning has been done on the project. Back in 2017, the city hired Wolf Landscape, and I think we had shared that expense for architecture for sharing the street, which just included at that stage just expanding the sidewalk next to the Woolworth building, which in this case is down here. The Woolworth building's right here. And so this is LaSalle Street, Jackson Street, that parking lot that's over there, and Columbus Street would be right over here. So this is the park on the north side with the angled parking. And so this proposal was, let's expand the sidewalks so that you can have outdoor dining, have trees and landscape for shade, and pave the street so that it's more suitable for events, a much more elevated appearance for the street. And the city also around the same time frame, so right after that, was concerned about giving out parking spaces to the city, and we jointly funded a parking study. And the parking study, in the nutshell, is that the busiest times of the week, on Tuesday morning when court's in session, which doesn't apply anymore because they're doing so much virtually, and on Friday night when all the restaurants and the bars are open and people are out and about at the concert and the like, we are using half of our parking inventory in downtown Ottawa. So there's plenty of parking to be had, and so I think we want more activity and an appropriate amount of parking as opposed to more parking. And so that was the upshot of that study. I can't even read those things up there, so you have it in front of you, you can read them. That's the findings that it was at on the study. But in a nutshell, there's plenty of parking in the eight blocks or so surrounding area around Washington Square and the Woolworth building. So planning idea workshops were held by the city with White and Company as the consultant back in 2018. And this set the framework for things that would be beneficial for downtown Ottawa and this block. And one was to have the park, on Washington Square Park, a beautiful amenity. We have commercial buildings, retail stores and the like, all the way around it. But we wanted to create a street in the middle, which is kind of a barrier from the park to the downtown. because it's two lanes of angled parking and a street, one-way street. And the idea is to create this plaza in between the two, to help create activity between the park and the city itself. And this is another image showing the park in the foreground, the Woolworth building with a lot of new openings on the side over there, and a lot of public uses, streetscape improvements on that area. Here's some pictures of the people meeting, very well attended meetings, and a lot of community participation and input. So they took, the city has all these documents on file, basically took all these different kinds of images of different things, different aspects of urban living in downtown Ottawa, and people identified in little sticky circles what they liked and what they didn't like. So it was really helpful. We still have the same community and a few new folks since then. So some of the ideas that were brought up are depicted here. Splash pad, places for the kids and families to play, converting or adding to the streetscape. There's that kind of amenity for that area. Outdoor play, places to gather, which can also function as small event spaces, bandstands, and the like. And then this image right here, which is a winter image, looking again on Jackson Street to the west. Possibility of an ice skating rink in the wintertime, which could be temporary or permanent, so that people do a lot of activity downtown. The idea of creating a screen along the Carson and Woolworth buildings that we own to project images that are significant for the local community, but also to project movies. So you could do ice skating and watch It's a Wonderful Life on the screen simultaneously. That kind of really unique events that can bring people downtown and get them to spend money and increase the tax base. So we had a few suggestions for minimal things to get started. And really, we think the big picture is what we would like you to adopt as your own. It doesn't have to be that particular one, but it's those kinds of elements that will bring things downtown. And it may take some time based on funding, but we think we should make those small plans. We should make big plans so that people are attracted to them, and not only people with money are attracted to those things, and that would be helpful. Immediately, we like to have Jackson Street a flexible space for both parking and events, so that you can do both of those things. It might start with something as simple as pavers and having curbless curbs, so that it's safe for people to walk across from the park to the building and the building to the park, so they're not tripping on things. Street trees, landscape would be very important. It's very simple things, could be like string lights across from the park to the Woolworth building, so you create this wonderful outdoor dining experience for the users of the space. On the Woolworth building, we're proposing on the north side, facing the park, these 4 large glass wall doors. So basically they would open up, creating a pavilion on the park, like some of these images are showing, where there's a lot of view from one space into the other, outdoor into indoors, so that people see activity when they come to town. And there's an opportunity for fresh air and breezes, especially with our very nice weather that we have here in the summertime, fall and the spring as well. We were talking about relocating the mural, and we've been in conversation for a good while with the folks in the mural committee, and I'm thinking we're really close to a resolution. I just spoke with Bob Eschbach, who indicated that the artist for the First National Bank murals also looked at this mural, the Lincoln Douglas mural, and determined that it was in reasonably good shape and could be relocated safely. And so we proposed a location on the 3rd story of the Carson building, and you can only really see that view when you're, you can best see that view, I should say, when you're at the park, because then you can see the full mural overlooking the park from the place where it makes most sense near the event. So that's a real possibility. I'm hoping we'll get some clarity from that soon. We were real strong believers in public art. That's what all of this is about too. It's about public attractions, public art, and this would be a way of continuing the lifespan of that artwork. We would use the Woolworth building for an expanded brewery operations for Roots Brewing, which is a business that's growing in the back of the Lone Buffalo and the back of house, Lone Buffalo, back of house in the Carson building. Right now we have to do portable canning, and we'd like to have a permanent canning facility for Tangled Roots, and we'd also like to have expanded cooling area for distribution. And that would take place, the latter part of that would take place in the Woolworth building. And that's something we'd like to finish this year. We'd also like to get started with the expanded restaurant operations for Tangled Roots by adding a commissary kitchen, which would allow Lone Buffalo to begin doing more catering events, but also would serve for this large multi-use event space, beer garden that the Woolworth building would become. And we would integrate the interior for event space. So we'd be able to attract, it's about a 12,000 square foot building. We're taking up probably about 4,000 square feet for Tangled Roots Brewing and the kitchen itself, leaving about 8,000 square feet for the beer hall. And that could accommodate probably about 300 people, 350 people at banquet seating. So a real possible private event space, but also open to the public for an expansion of events on the square. So you could have a farmer's market indoors. You could have the Chris Kringle Market expand. You could have new events that need some shelter in the area in the building itself. We expect it as a building that will be operated open most of the time, but also especially for private events in the evening times, for weddings, events, and things like that, some concerts as well. So that's where we are. And so we're anxious to hear from you and your thoughts are, and open to questions